And he gets in these fights with people. Okay, I like Jimmy Dore a great deal. Okay, so he's recently making waves. I talked about AOC. He recently, or maybe 2 weeks ago, brought up this proposal idea that um, why don't we hold Nancy Pelosi to account? This Pelosi is famously against Medicare for all. You know, myself, Medicare for all might be kind of inadequate. We desperately need a national health care system. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We desperately need, whether Medicare for all is the way to go. Yeah, okay. I think we need more of a Canadian style or British style system, but okay. Anyway, Pelosi and the leaders of the Democratic Party famously oppose this. So Jimmy Dore brought up the fact that why don't you threaten to not vote for Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker this time? Like the progressives have greater leverage in the House of Representatives. The Democrats still control it by a smaller margin this time, and they have much greater leverage. They could threaten to wait a second, well, threaten to block Pelosi being renominated. Well, Pelosi being reconfirmed as Speaker of the House. So this triggered an uproar, huge uproar on social media, on Twitter, YouTube, leftist YouTube channels. Basically, what happened is AOC did not respond directly to Dore. In fact, she hasn't really answered his calls or contact since way back. Originally, Dore. They were close. Dore featured her, and originally, but that reason in the past quite a while hasn't had anything to do with Dore. But there's an NFL football player, Justin Jackson, who's with the Oakland Raiders. He's a Medicare for All activist. He was on Dore. Dore interviewed him. Very moving. He described how his mother died, and it could look like was a preventable illness. Basically, because his family couldn't afford medical treatment. It's very moving and very sad. So it's the crimes of U.S. healthcare system. So he's a healthcare for all, Medicare for all activist. So he jumped on, and AOC responded to him, and they had this debate going on. So, and this triggered this much wider debate, and whether Dore's being too nasty or too nasty to AOC or whatever, and many people backdoor. Basic idea that AOC said, no, I don't want to do this. It would be too risky. We can work on other issues like raising the minimum wage to 15, which Pelosi says she supports. We have other issues we can work on. It's too risky. I don't want to risk my political capital for doing this. The Dore, then other people slammed into its hypocrisy. I mean, time to get off, take a shit, or get off the pot. Why we don't care about fostering your political career when you actually do fight for something. There's no chance. It doesn't seem likely the Democrats would lose being a Speaker of the House. I mean, uh, it would go to another Democrat. It might be a period of chaos if Pelosi is voted. They vote against Pelosi, but it would go to another Democrat. Democrats still have. So it's been huge, kicked off this huge fight. It exposed the hypocrisy about the Democratic Party of Pelosi herself. If say AOC hypothetically voted for this, and Pelosi would have had to say no, voted to block Pelosi unless it's not going to accomplish anything per se. I mean, it's not going to accomplish legislation, but what it would accomplish is showing up the hypocrisy of the Democrats. They're denying us health care in the middle of a pandemic. That's what's happening. And it would just show them up. But AOC doesn't want to do this. Obviously, she's building her own brand, her own career too. She's not going to go against Pelosi. And, Dore knows this. Dore definitely, other people know this. So there's been this big, real fight erupted. Some YouTube channels who I like kind of supported Dore, and there are some more start off like Dore, sort of liberal left, moved to the far left. The Convo Couch with Isabella Fiorella and Pasta Jardul is really good. Nico House, a few others. Richard Medhurst, who's a Syrian who really he gets very angry too. Younger guy than Dore, kind of allied, and a variety of others supported Dore, strongly supported Dore, calling out the phoniness of AOC and the phoniness of the Democratic Party as a whole. Big part of what the radical left has to do is bring people out of the party. Okay, so there's a counterattack. from a variety of people. What's her name? Ana Kaspaian, who was one of the leaders of the Young Turks, who Dore used to be a part of. They definitely turned against Dore. Ana Kasparian had a series of tweets. This is all much as is fought out on Twitter, and for a while it still is. The Dore referendum is trending on Twitter. It's making a political firestorm, which is what we need. He's doing what socialist organizations should be doing. Okay, so Ana Kasparian said, well, maybe I could see Dore's point, but he's acting in bad faith. He's building his own brand. He's just doing totally. He mentioned he had illusions in Tulsi Gabbard. So there was a counterattack against that. Dore and others had a counterattack. Dore brought up investigation by the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal, and that Ana Kasparian is, to be blunt, a NATO shill. That she's supposedly a leftist. She went to essentially a NATO conference, Munich Security Conference. I think it was last year. I don't remember when it was, but she went there. It was sponsored by arms manufacturers, banks, NATO, the NATO apparatus, and the German government. It was essentially a NATO convention. And she interviewed Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State, who's a blood-drenched warmonger. Madeleine Albright's very famous for saying, when I think Barbara Walters interviewed her years ago, I mentioned the fact that 500,000 Iraqi children, because of sanctions, which basically Bill Clinton enacted, 500,000 Iraqi children died. Do you think it was worth it? And Madeleine Albright famously said, yeah, it was worth it. I mean, Madeleine Albright was instrumental in these sanctions, basically genocidal sanctions. She helped instrumental in dismembering Yugoslavia. I mean, she's a blood-drenched warmonger. Anyway, Ana Kasparian interviewed her, and it was obsequious. I'm so honored to be with you. Oh, God. And yeah, she was most likely paid pretty well. So called her as a Max Blumenthal, and Jimmy Dore called her as a NATO shill, which she is 100%. So who's acting in bad faith? And she's supposedly the left. And then a variety of other leftish figures. Vouch is on YouTube channel. He's a complete idiot. He was calling out. Apparently he didn't even understand the procedural rules in the House, things like that. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see how this goes. And so Dore is making waves. He's doing what really should be doing. It's pretty certain that AOC will continue to refuse to do this. She'll vote for Pelosi for House. I mean, she'll make up any excuse in the world, but they're exposing the hypocrisy of progressive Democrats. No, you don't support the Democrats, especially the progressive Democrats. Every couple of years, they'll bring up a shiny new thing to bring people back in, and it's a disaster. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed my video. Hope you enjoy this. I don't mean to offend people. Some of this may be controversial, and I have friends and people I personally like and respect who maybe might have strong feelings. Otherwise, just listen to this and keep an open mind. And thank you. Goodbye.